Clemson gets a commitment from, wait for it, an offensive lineman for the 2025 season. And I am just returning from San Francisco. Yes, two of our fellow Atlantic Coast Conference teams is out there, and no one cares. I'll get to that and more. Welcome to Clemson Football Live. I am Brian. I am very happy that you're here. I hope you subscribe if you like what I'm doing. I hope you subscribe. I hope you pass it along to your friends, neighbors, clergymen, grandma, and so on. Leave in the comments section, by the way, if you're a first-time viewer, I'd love to say hello to you. Crud, if you're a 55th time viewer, I hope you say hello. And I'm glad you're here. So, I was getting ready for this live stream, and then I see that Brayden Jacobs from Alpharetta, Georgia, Buford High School. If you know nothing about Buford High School, you need to get with your high school game, especially if you are in the general area of Georgia. Now, Clemson is only about an hour and 45 minutes from Atlanta. If you're driving down 85 South, get into Atlanta, you're going to get to the Mall of Georgia. That's more of the Buford, Georgia area. But Buford High School in Alpharetta, I might have bespoke there a little bit on the area, but it's Metro Atlanta, Alpharetta. This guy's 6'7", 310 pounds. ESPN, Rivals, and 24/7 Sports has him at a 4-star. Okay? 6'7", 310 pounds. Matt Luke, I think this is the first commit that he's got. And this is big for Clemson. Clemson has to get back to recruiting unbelievable offensive linemen. They have to. And how the game is turning, how the game has turned on Clemson over the past few years because of offensive line play. We have to have some promise of some great players coming in. I mean, this guy as a junior is already a 4-star. You know, there's a great chance he'll probably bump on up to a 5-star. We just hope to retain him, but that's a fantastic land for Matt Luke. And I know the guy can decommit and he could go elsewhere, blah, 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 blah. But at least we have a commitment from him. I'm extremely happy about that. So hopefully we continue to land more guys like him, high 4-stars and 5-stars, because believe it or not, against popular thought, and people love to argue this, one of the reasons that Georgia stays on top is because they're always in the top 5, top 3 of recruiting. How do you attain that? It's called 5 stars and high 4 stars. That's how you do that. So, yes, you might have a few guys who were overrated, but overall, most of the time, it's the rating system's very close. So, it's great news coming out of Clemson, coming out of the state of Georgia. Brayden Jacobs has committed to Clemson, and I'm very excited to see what this does for Clemson because as more and more people commit to Clemson, as more and more big names commit to Clemson, as more and more 4-stars and up commit to Clemson, it really brings more trust into what's going on at Clemson. It brings more confidence in the direction of the team. So that's a big deal. That is a big deal. One of the worst things that can ever happen to a company, to a small business, all the way to a team, is when people, especially a team that it's not like a high school. People aren't just, transferring in unless you're like some of these programs, IMG or whatever. But if you're a team who has to have brand recognition, who has to be appealing to these guys in high school, you got to protect your reputation. They have to believe that something cool is going on in Clemson. And you and I can be Clemson fans for all of our life and talk about, I can't believe they'd go to Georgia. Folks, I'm sorry, it's a business decision now, and we all know that. So, to see this brings more confidence in Clemson and what's going on there, and this is very good for the Tigers. So congrats to the Tigers on that, and we will see we will see who else commits to the Tigers. So, I had a few people say, hey, I didn't know where you were at. You were gone this entire week. Normally, you put up at least one video. I did a video. I recorded a video right before I left last week. Maybe it was last Friday, not 3 days ago or 2 days ago. I'm talking about 9 days ago. And I'll let everybody know, hey, look, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be out of town on work, work assignment. And so you're probably not going to hear anything from me. Now, I'm very careful about talking about when I'm not at home because most all of y'all are really sane people, well, at least semi-sane, kind of like me, and you're innocent, and you would be like, hey, we wish you safe travels, can't wait for you to come back, or I don't know, stay out there, but you wouldn't want, anything bad to happen to me, but unfortunately there are people, if they think they know where you live, they'll, you know how that is, so I'm not even getting into that. So I didn't say anything until I was on my way back. So I was in San Francisco this week, and for anyone who knows in that general area, you have Cal Berkeley, the California Bears, and you have Stanford. So I only saw a couple of people wearing Cal, either shirts or hats. My Uber driver one night, he and I got to talking, and he told me that he graduated from, if I understand correctly, he graduated from Cal. He's a very smart guy, and I really didn't see anyone that was representing Stanford, though I know someone I work with who graduated from Stanford. But do you know what everyone was talking about in San Francisco? Do you want to take a wild guess? Do you want to pause for a second? Were they talking about the upcoming ACC season, where these two teams who are so close to the Pacific Ocean, I mean, they're just there on the Pacific. You want to know what they were talking about? No. There was no mention of these two schools at all. Tyler Burbeck, you're right. It's the 49ers. Everyone is talking about the 49ers. No one cares about college football at Stanford or at California. Now, in the past, we all know, I'm not in denial that in the past that these teams have actually produced some incredible talent. Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Lynch, and more has come out of California. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Goff, that's playing for the Detroit Lions. I'm not big on the NFL, folks. You know that. I'm pretty sure he came from the University of California. We know Stanford produced Christian McCaffrey, Andrew Luck. They've produced some really good players historically, but over the past probably 7 or 8 years, the truth is, both teams they really haven't been that good. Now, I know I'm overgeneralizing by saying 7 or 8 years. I haven't pulled up both of their schedules, but I just want to ask you this. Hasn't it been a while since both those teams meant anything? Yeah. And so I was sitting with a coworker who was born and raised in San Francisco, moved to San Diego, but he was back in town for this work thing that I was out there for. And he's a big Niners fan, and he brought up Clemson to me. He said, man, y'all had a tough year this year. I said, yeah, and we talked about it. And, of course, the transfer portal. Dabo's got to start using that transfer portal. And I told him, I said, because this is someone I know well, that I work with, that I can, there's other people you can't correct them. If you correct them, they say it is rude and blah, 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 blah. And sometimes I just have to sit there when I'm in personal conversations and just, okay, I'm lying. I still correct them on this one. Yeah, it's not the transfer portal. It's the portal coaching hires on the offensive side of the ball. All these years, it's finally come back to haunt him. It finally came back. It's bit him. And he planted the seed. He planted doo-doo seeds, and fruits of doo-doo popped up. And that's what happened. Thank God we got Matt Luke there, and thank God that we have Garrett Riley. I think there's a few more that needs to go transparently. We were talking, and I asked him, I said, how about Cal and Stanford joining the ACC, he said, this makes absolutely no sense. This is not logical. He's like, that's crazy. And then he went on to talking about the 49ers. See, folks, I know Stanford comes to town. The new schedule was released this week. The Clemson schedule was released. And right off the top of my head, I do believe that we play Stanford on the 28th of September in Death Valley. You need to understand something. Stanford probably has not played in front of a stadium that cares about college football like they are about to see in Clemson. Now, I know I just offended someone. I know I just offended someone right now. And I have the comment section turned off. This is a live stream for anyone watching in the future. I have it turned off. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I'm going to tell you this. I know that it's tough to play in Utah. I know that it's tough to play in Eugene, Oregon. Okay? And I know it gets really loud at the University of Washington. But people, when they come to Death Valley, they come to Clemson, South Carolina, they are shocked at how fanatical we are. They're always blown away that Clemson is so psychotic about college football. They're blown away. And I just don't see Stanford faring very well coming to Death Valley. And that's even with my suspicions about the season, what we can expect, what we might be over-expecting. Matt Luke has his work cut out for him. And by the way, I'm going to start producing videos. They will be pre-recorded, pre-edited. I will tell you that takes a lot of time. But I want to go over what I see going on with the team at an individual player level, coaching level, and then as a conglomerate among like the offensive line room, the wide receiver room. Notice I'm talking mostly about the offense. The offense is what's kicked us in the butt over and over and over and over. The defense has let us down very little, and if they have let us down, it's because their butt was out on the field way too much, or they were put into a terrible, terrible, terrible situation. By who? The offense. And really, coaching. So, I'm going to produce those videos. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to go more in depth on that, and I'm going to give you my opinion. But even with my questions about the 2024 season, I believe Clemson will handle Stanford. I believe they will take care of business. Now, I don't think that Stanford is just going to come into Death Valley and just roll over and die. But what I do believe is that their football program is it's not doing well. Now, I brought up California here just a second ago. And I'll talk about California in just a moment. I want to go over Stanford's records over the past few years. All right. Remember David Shaw? They fired David Shaw after the 2022 season. David Shaw had been there forever. David Shaw took over for Jim Harbaugh in 2011. So Jim Harbaugh was the coach. Harbaugh. I'll say Harbaugh. It's the accent. Who cares? Isn't that the funniest thing? You can hear someone who's from another country pronounce something a certain way. Oh, isn't that beautiful? You hear someone from another part of the United States say it. It's, hey, isn't that funny? That's that region. If it's a southerner, always gets corrected. I'm just telling you, I eat, sleep, breathe it. That's why I had to say that. I'm just getting it off my chest, folks. It's free therapy. But David Shaw took over in 2011. Okay? Harbaugh was 12-1 in 2010. He was 12-1 in 2010. and won the Orange Bowl. Now, I don't know if he got to coach that game. I'm just looking at overall generalization. David Shaw took over in 2011, folks, okay? And he was fired last year, so they gave him a lot of time. He was 11-2, 12-2, 11-3, 8-5, 12-2, 10-3, 9-5, 9-4, 4-8. Let me see, 4-8. 2020 he was 4-2, 3-9, and then 3-9. David Shaw had checked out. And during that time, he had what? McCaffrey. Did he have Luck during that time? I can't remember the periods during those moments. I'll have to go back and look at that. But Troy Taylor, he took over this year. He went 3-9. It was his first season. But if you're sitting here and you're looking at Stanford, you have to ask yourself, I mean, like, what do you really expect out of this guy? And then you have to step back from a Clemson fan who's been part of the ACC. We want out of the ACC. Most of us fans want out of the ACC. And I still believe, I'm going to tell you this, I still believe that some way, somehow, if enough money is produced by someone, Clemson will get out of the grant of rights. And I'm going to give you an example. And some of you your butt's going to pucker up like, oh no, he's bringing this up. No. I'm just saying. I'm just going to make it very benign. But I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, there was some project that was brought up dealing with our government, and it was going to cost $20 billion. And someone said, oh, we'll never cough up $20 billion. We send billions upon billions upon billions of dollars that makes $20 billion look tiny. To other countries, we waste it on programs in this country now. My point of bringing that up is not to make everyone uncomfortable or turn off because I'm bringing up politics. I haven't said yay or nay or anything. Calm down. What I'm saying is that if you want to spend the money on something, you'll find it. I heard the other day, I don't know if it's true, that homelessness in the United States, and by the way, I was in San Francisco, it's one of the worst places for homelessness in the United States. I feel really bad for the people on the street, whatever put them there, whether it was their own doing or not. I feel bad for the citizens there who were walking through it. But homelessness could be cured, supposedly, by $20 billion. We say we don't have it, and then we ship it off to another country. All I'm saying is, and I know I just ticked off someone there. I'm not getting political. I just said we could solve homelessness. That sounds good. If you have the money, but you want to spend it on something else, you spend it on something else. Clemson could get out of this ACC deal. If someone wants Clemson bad enough, guess what? They can get out of this ACC deal. Well, you've got to understand, Dan Radakovich looked at it and said there's no way out of it. Money. Have you ever seen The Family Guy? It was either Family Guy or The Simpsons that showed how it was really crude, how Magic Johnson basically kept dying from AIDS. Really, it's really bad. But he was basically like burning money, and it would just keep him alive. It was something like that. It was really crude. That's what a lot of you forget. If somebody has enough money, they can get away with about anything. And that's what I still believe to this day will end up happening. But I'm looking at the comments right now. A bunch of you in here, and I'll get to that in just a second. But going back to Stanford. Stanford has not been relevant in a while. Can this guy do what the cat did down there at Arizona? Who, by the way, I don't think he ever played college football ever before. And now he's the head coach at Washington. We will see. And I tell you right now, since I brought it up, I think it's only fair for me to bring up California. California, yeah, football. I'm going to bring up California football. And I want to look at their record because I watched them last year. And let me see who's in here. It said they're a fan. Tyler Burbeck. I'm a Cal fan. Last season gave me hope after making bowl game that maybe we can at least be in the middle of the pack team in the ACC. You don't know because the ACC this year had its ups and downs. And you never know who's going to show up and who's actually going to show out. Now, I know that there's a statistic out there that we did way better against SEC schools this year. My question is, against which SEC schools? Clemson beat a very bad South Carolina football team and barely beat them. Florida State beat a very bad Florida team who I don't believe their head coach will be their head coach midway through the 2024 season. That's not that good. I mean, if you go and you beat a Vanderbilt or if you beat a Mississippi State, yes, a win is a win is a win, but you can't claim that you're truly dominant over the SEC when if you were to play Georgia, you would get every hair on your head blown off. So maybe Tyler, y'all could do that. So let's talk about the California Golden Bears and how this impacts Clemson, how this impacts the ACC. Now, the last winning season the California had was in 2019. They were 8-5. They were 8-5. And then before that, they were 7-6. The last 10-win season that they had was in 2006. And that was an interesting team. I'm actually going to click into that team and see who was on that team. Marshawn Lynch was on the team. Marshawn Lynch was on that team. And Deshaun Jackson was on the team. I mean, those are two guys right off the bat that when you see their names, you go, oh, yeah, that explains why. But it's been a while since California has been worthwhile. I had someone come on my channel the other day, and it was like, here you are talking about Alabama football on Clemson Football Live. Folks, you know, when the top coach one of the top coaches just in sports in general decides to call it quits, I talk about it because it does affect Clemson. It does affect Clemson. I'm going to talk about other teams on here, folks. I don't know why that's so offensive to some. It shouldn't be. I have a dog barking downstairs. So let's talk about California. California showed some moments this year to where their offense could look decent. Now, I'm not a California Golden Bear pot of knowledge. That's a terrible term. That's the only thing I could vomit up in the moment. It's alive. This is a video. I could edit that out. Say something brilliant. Put it in. Y'all think, man, he's smart. Which, by the way, most do. But California has been sticking with Justin Wilcox, unless they fired him. I don't know about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons. He's been there for 7 years. Before that, they had Sonny Dykes for 4 seasons. And I just really step back and I look at this team and I think about, you go to the area that the two schools are located in and no one's talking about them. And we add them to the ACC. We add them to the ACC. You go out there to where they're at. Almost 3,000 flipping miles away. You know what I was talking about? I mean, really. And the ACC reached all the way across the country, passing teams left and right who geographically or even semi-geographically would have made sense. SMU makes a lot more sense than these two schools. And you can, but you would be wrong. You can't say it's because, well, the ACC is trying to get into another market. Did you hear me? The people who is their market is not watching Stanford or Cal. That's wrong. Nobody cares. In marketing, in a marketing plan, this is the ABCs of marketing, but it's pretty much a cornerstone on how to run marketing. You know what you do? You step back and you say, okay, we're really good at making this product. We'll just say you make a product. I make a product. Well, hold on. I need to let people know about my product so they can buy my product so I can earn money, right? It makes sense. It's like, it's there. So what do? You go, hold on, who would use this product? Like if you created a lawnmower, you're probably not putting all your money and attention on mothers who were in between a certain age range and going to Babies R Us and putting up posters and buying advertising time at the prenatal place. No, you wouldn't do that. You would probably be focusing on guys for the most part. Not that women can't cut grass or incapable of mowing a lawn. That's not what I'm saying here. Chill out. You've had too much diversity training at work. Chill. Not everything's bad. But you would say, that's not my target. Nursing mothers is not my target market. I need to go over here to my target market, to guys between this age group and that age group, who most likely is a homeowner or rents a house with a yard, or maybe a business who has a decent amount of land. That's who you would market that to. Folks, we're marketing ACC football on the West Coast to two fan bases who they barely have any fans. Tell me how that makes sense. Nothing. I don't get it. Tiger Tom says, as a former resident of California, I can tell you that California football has never really been a respectable program. Not in our time, anyway. And I just went through, and anybody who's joining me here late, I hope you subscribe. It's free, okay? It's free. It's easy. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. It helps my channel. And I do appreciate it. It's good to see you people in here, by the way. I'm glad everybody's making the comments in here. Alex Gaming Channel, we're making the playoffs this year. Don't know if we win it all, but after this season, where we start to get really elite again. Alex, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I just think that we still, and this is going to be the subject of one of my videos, and I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag for anyone who's watching right now. Just hang around for a second. You know me, I go on my rants. This is a longer video. This is not a shorter one. I've been trying to keep my videos in the 15 to 18 minute range and call it. But we still have to figure out, is it the quarterback? Is it the offensive line? Is it the wide receivers? Or is it a mixture, and you could switch that up any way you want to, of all three? Of all three. So I'm not going to dive into that, but I am going to address this during the off season. And April 6th at 1 o'clock is a spring game. So we have a lot to fix at Clemson. We have a lot to fix at Clemson. And starting off with Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, is not the way, absolutely worst case scenario. We should be starting off with Furman. We should be starting off with Butthole State. We should be starting with My Stomach is Cramping, Red Hat Ladies. We should be starting off with anybody but Georgia right now, because we are not in a place to play Georgia. I'm going to shut up now and get back to the topic that is on this video. None of this makes sense for Stanford and or Cal to be in the ACC. Now, I just went over Stanford's history just a few moments ago. And I talked about how, right here, for any of you who are just recently joining me, the last winning season that California had was 2019. They went 8-5. The last really good season that they had was 2006. That's when my oldest was born. They had Marshawn Lynch and Deshaun Jackson playing for them. They went 10-3. Okay? If you go over here to, and I'm going to click back to this. I go back and listen to some of my videos, and I hear my mouse clicking. I'm like, God, I hate that. Sounds ridiculous. It's my video, and I want to throw the screen. The last winning record that Stanford had, they were 9-4 in 2018. They were 12-2 with David Shaw in 2015. I want to say there was a young man named Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey was playing for that team. Okay? Christian McCaffrey rushed for 2,000 yards that year. Let's go to the 2013 season. Yeah, he was not there then. He was not there then. So, in recent 15-year history, Stanford's done a lot better than California. Okay? They have. But recently, over the past 4 years, Stanford has done worse than California. They really have. So, you have to, I'm just go back to business, I go back to marketing. I go back to Marketing 101. This does not make sense if you're trying to get fans in. It's like here in the United States. They have been, I'm 41 years old, and I have seen the progression of how the U.S. community and the international community has tried to make soccer massive in the United States. Now, has its popularity grown? Yes, it has. It has. I'm not taking away from that. But as much as they wanted, with all the resources poured into soccer, well, the rest of the world is playing it. I didn't say the rest of the world's not playing it, folks. Folks, I'm not saying that that soccer is not popular in the rest of the world. I didn't say that. I said in the United States. It's like right now, my son's downstairs. He's watching the Chiefs and the Ravens. Okay? He's watching the Chiefs and the Ravens. We live in an area here in the Greenville area where soccer is king. And he could care less about soccer. He could care less. So, my point is, you can try to make this is my point. You can try to make Americans just love soccer. People in the United States love soccer as much as I have a really good friend of mine who's from London. He lives right down the road from me. Great friend of mine. He loves soccer. He loves rugby. Well, that's good for him. That's great. He watches a little bit of football, American football, but he really doesn't care about it. That's fine. But no matter how much they've tried to make us love football, soccer, as much as our American football, or our baseball, or our basketball, it hasn't worked. And my point of making that example is not to talk about soccer. It's how the ACC thinks that they can go out to the Bay Area and make everybody care about college football when they don't care. You might have a few people who loves Cal football or who loves Stanford football and they cared. But it's not like Clemson football where everybody cares. And if they don't care, it's probably because they're a Gamecock. Or they're a Georgia Bulldog. Or they're a Tennessee Volunteer. That's the reason they don't care about Clemson football. It's because they care about another football team. In the Bay Area, they don't care. And the ACC thinks they're going to go out there and convert them to college football nuts. Like our Southeastern teams, forget it. That was a terrible move. It was awful. And whoever signed on to it and thought it was a good idea to bring them in, it was a terrible idea. And I know that the rebuttal to that has been something like, well, just in case the ACC falls below what? A certain number of teams? They're padding their teams so they don't have to renegotiate the TV contract. Am I right? I believe I'm right. So that's funny that they did that if that was the reason. But bringing in Stanford and Cal for competitive purposes into the ACC is ridiculous. Once again, the ACC and those who are running it, they may have doctor or PhD on both ends of their names, but they prove one thing to me very clearly, loud and clearly, that they care less about college football. You watch the ACC network, it looks like ESPN rented out a local PBS station and threw up some football signs around it and got some former players to come in and talk. They went out and they found some young girl who's in her mid to late 20s to come in, try to dress a little more fashionable, and she can ask the football players questions. But they really didn't care about it. They really wasn't even selective there. They wasn't selective on most of the people they put on there. Every now and again, they'll have a good one on there. But that the ACC network looks, for football especially, looks exactly, it matches how intensely and serious the ACC leaders really are about college football, which they're not serious enough. The Big 12 made better moves than us. Losing the teams that they lost, they made better moves than us. And the only reason that the Pac-12 isn't making better moves than us is because it disintegrated into two teams. So the bar fell much lower. The next step for the ACC was and is to disintegrate. Get some people in here chatting, talking. Love it. And by the way, folks, I'm not taking a shot at soccer. If you love soccer, great, wonderful. I wished I loved soccer. I wished I loved baseball because I could watch 9,000 games a year. I really could. I could get up in the middle of the night and watch soccer being played somewhere. And I'm serious. I'm not being a sarcastic jerk about that. I really mean that. I wish that I did. I've just sat there and I've watched it, and I just don't get into it. I'm sorry. I just can't make myself get into it. It's like, wow. Baseball, when a guy can step off a mound to scratch his manhood and then step back on and then step back off to scratch the other side of his manhood, I'm sorry. And I had one old timer tell me, well, it's just because you just want action. That's what you want. It's like, dude, I don't like it when a guy has to stop. I want a guy to have to stop the game because he thinks he might have broke his arm. Not because his midsection is itching. I'm sorry. Now, I did watch Clemson when they played in the when they played in the ACC tournament and when they were playing in the College World Series, sub tournaments. But I can't make myself like it. I can't. And what's so funny to me about soccer is in the Greenville area that we have what's called CISA or SKISA or something like that. You drive over towards the Five Forks area, Simpsonville, Five Forks area of Greenville, and you will see these massive areas. It's quite impressive. They have these overly manicured lots with thousands of people playing soccer in this small league. They eat, sleep, breathe soccer. And if you ever run into some, it's not everybody, but if you run into some of them, they'll look at you and it's like they're trying to convince you why soccer is better than everything. And they'll spit off stats like an old woman would spit off Bible scripture to you. And they look you in the eye like, why don't you get with the program with the rest of the 6 billion people on earth? Say, bro, first, you like what you like. Second of all, you're repulsing me. You make me want to burn down. You make me want to burn a soccer ball in front of you just to see your reaction. If you love soccer, that's great. That's wonderful. It's fine. Some of my closest friends and family love soccer, play soccer. They really love soccer. Good for them. It's just like, man, Lord help us. Well, folks, I'm going to let y'all go. And I hope you have subscribed. If you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll do that. But I would tell you, be watching for the videos. And as I said, it's going to take me more time on these videos. But I am going to, I see I have more people in here right now. If you don't click out, stay with me. Because this is a big announcement for the channel. I am going to be creating pre-recorded videos. Breaking down our quarterback, Cade Klubnik. I'm going to break down our wide receivers. I'm going to break down our offensive line. I'm going to break down coaching. I'm going to talk about some of the changes I'd still like to see. I'm going to talk about these things. I'm going to talk about our offense, or excuse me, I'm going to talk about our defense. And then I will go over our schedule. I'll talk about other teams as well that we have to play, or teams like Georgia. We do have to play them, but maybe other teams who are outside of our schedule who will actually affect us in some way, whether it's through NIL, whether it's through just regular recruiting, whatever it may be, because Clemson, Clemson may believe that they can keep this homegrown, inside atmosphere nucleus, and that what's going on in the college football world does not affect it just because we all really lock arms and stick our fingers in our ears and sing the Tiger Rag. But that's not reality. You know it, and I know it. And if you don't know it, you're going to figure it out. You might be a little more stubborn to coming around to it. I used to be a little more stubborn like that. And then I became more logical. And I had to start valuing logic and the truth and the outcome of what I thought, seeing that it was wrong. And I was like, well, how did I come to this wrong outcome? And a lot of times it was because I wanted Clemson to win so bad. I would just say, well, I'm having hope for the team. And you got to have some hope, man. You know, there's always a chance. If you are going through your football season like that versus going, hey, we've got a really good team with really good coaches. Yeah, we could lose, but we have a great chance of winning because of those things. That's two different ways of thinking about college football. And with Clemson, it's not been as bright recently, but hopefully some things will change. I will be doing those videos, but they take longer to make. So I hope you'll be patient with me. Hope you'll subscribe. It's free. I appreciate you all being here. Folks, on a good or a bad day, it's always good to be a Tiger. And by the way, it's good to be back in the upstate of South Carolina. As always, go Tigers.